The docking clamps engaged with a resonant clang that echoed through the cavernous bay of Omega-7 Station. Captain Marcus Voss stood at the viewport of the transport shuttle, watching the familiar bustle of deck crews preparing for his arrival. 8 years. 8 long years since he'd last set foot on this station, and the sight of it brought a mixture of relief and apprehension that settled heavy in his chest. His reflection stared back from the reinforced glass-weathered face marked by countless star voyages, graying hair cropped military short, and the subtle gleam of cybernetic circuitry along his left temple where a Cathari neural disruptor had nearly taken his life 3 years ago. But it was his right arm that drew the most attention, a masterwork of military prosthetics that had replaced the limb he'd lost during the disaster at Kepler Station. "Permission to disembark, Captain?" asked Ensign Torres, the young pilot who'd ferried him from the outer system checkpoint. "Granted," Voss replied, though his attention was already focused on the figure striding across the docking bay toward their shuttle. Even at this distance, he recognized the purposeful gait, the way she held her shoulders straight despite the years that had passed. The airlock cycled open with a soft hiss, and Voss stepped onto the deck plates of Omega-7. The familiar scent of recycled atmosphere, tinged with the metallic undertone of starship fuel, and the faint ozone smell of energy weapons filled his nostrils. Home, in the way that only a military installation could be home to a career officer. She approached with measured steps, her Altarian heritage evident in the subtle blue tint to her skin and the way starlight seemed to catch in her silver flecked eyes. The uniform she wore was no longer the junior lieutenant's stripes he remembered, but the gold-trimmed insignia of a full lieutenant commander. "Captain Voss," she said, coming to attention with perfect military precision. "Permission to welcome you back to Omega-7, sir." For a moment, Marcus found himself speechless. The young communications officer, who had served under him aboard the USS Meridian, had grown into something remarkable. Lieutenant Commander Zara Kellex stood before him with the confidence of someone who had earned every promotion through skill and dedication, her blue-tinged features showing the wisdom that came from years of command experience. "Lieutenant Commander Kellex," he managed, returning her salute with his prosthetic hand, a gesture that still felt strange after all these years. 8 years looks good on you. That's quite a jump in rank." A slight smile touched her lips, though her posture remained formal. "I had an excellent teacher in tactical communications, sir. Your training programs from the Meridian are still being used at the Academy." The mention of his former ship sent an unexpected pang through Marcus's chest. The Meridian and most of her crew were gone, lost in the quantum storms of the Helix Nebula during what the official reports called a routine patrol mission. Only a handful had survived, scattered across the fleet to new assignments, carrying the weight of that loss like invisible scars. "I heard about your commendations," Marcus said, deflecting from the painful memories. "The Rigel incident, the Proxima Station evacuation. You've made quite a name for yourself." Zara's expression softened slightly. "I learned from the best. Captain, your tactical innovations saved thousands during those operations." She paused, her silver eyes studying his face with the keen intelligence he remembered. "Oh, I have to ask, what brings Marcus Voss back to the frontier?" "Last I heard, Command had you training new officers at the Academy on Earth." Marcus shifted slightly, the servo motors in his prosthetic arm whirring softly as he adjusted his grip on his travel case. "Let's just say retirement doesn't suit me as well as I thought it would. When Commander Reed requested my consultation on the new deep space reconnaissance protocols, I couldn't turn it down. It was a carefully constructed half-truth. The real reason for his return was classified at levels that even Zara's security clearance couldn't access. The mysterious signals from the Helix Nebula, the energy readings that matched no known technology, and the growing concern among Fleet Command that something was stirring in that supposedly empty region of space. "Commander Reed mentioned you'd be briefing the senior staff," Zara said, falling into step beside him as they walked toward the station's main lift. "I'm looking forward to hearing about these new protocols." As they entered the lift and began the ascent to the command levels, Marcus caught Zara studying his prosthetic arm with professional curiosity rather than pity. It was one of the things he'd always appreciated about her, the ability to see past surface details, to focus on what truly mattered. "How's the integration?" she asked, nodding toward the advanced prosthetic. "Better than expected. Military grade, full neural interface. Sometimes I forget it's not original equipment." He flexed the artificial fingers, watching the smooth articulation. "Though it does set off security scanners in interesting ways." Zara's smile broadened into something more genuine. "I imagine so. The biometric sensors in that thing must be impressive." The lift chimed softly as they reached the command deck, and Marcus felt the familiar thrill of anticipation that came with returning to active duty, even temporarily. Whatever was waiting for them in the briefing rooms ahead, whatever secrets the Helix Nebula might be hiding, he was ready to face it, especially with officers like Zara Kellex at his side. The briefing room aboard Omega-7 hummed with the subdued energy of senior officers, gathering for what they sensed would be a significant mission. Captain Marcus Voss entered to find Commander Jackson Reed already seated at the head of the polished conference table, his weathered face bearing the kind of permanent tension that came from years of frontier command. Reed had aged considerably since their last meeting, his once brown hair now completely silver, deep lines etched around his gray eyes. "Marcus," Reed stood, extending his hand with genuine warmth. "Damn good to see you again, though I wish it were under better circumstances." Voss accepted the handshake, noting the firm grip that spoke of a man still very much in command of his faculties, despite the toll of years. "Jackson, your message was cryptic, but effective. I'm here." Lieutenant Commander Zara Kellex took her seat at the table, her silver-flecked eyes moving between the two veteran officers with keen interest. She had clearly sensed the undercurrent of tension in Reed's demeanor during their walk to the briefing room. Reed activated the holographic display at the center of the table, and immediately the room was filled with a three-dimensional representation of the Helix Nebula. The swirling clouds of ionized gas glowed with ethereal beauty, but Voss felt his stomach clench at the sight. Somewhere in those cosmic storms, the USS Meridian and 237 souls had vanished without a trace. 3 weeks ago, our long-range sensors detected unusual energy patterns originating from the nebula's core. Reed began, his voice taking on the clipped tones of a military briefing. "The signatures don't match any known technology, not human, not Altarian, not even the theoretical projections for Cathari quantum drives." Voss leaned forward, studying the energy readings displayed alongside the nebula. The patterns were complex, almost organic in their fluctuations. "You're thinking ancient technology? Maybe something left behind by the predecessors?" "That was our initial hypothesis," Reed replied, manipulating the display to zoom in on a specific region of the nebula. "But then we received this." The hologram shifted to display a communication frequency analysis, the data streams cascading in familiar patterns. Voss felt the blood drain from his face as he recognized the encryption protocol's old Terran fleet standards, the kind used by ships like the Meridian. "That's impossible," he said quietly, his prosthetic hand unconsciously clenching into a fist. "The Meridian was destroyed. We confirmed the debris field, analyzed the quantum resonance patterns. There were no survivors." Zara's voice was carefully controlled as she spoke. "Sir, what exactly did your sensors detect in the original?" "Disaster?" Reed exchanged a meaningful glance with Voss before answering. "The official reports state that the Meridian encountered a spatial anomaly while investigating claims of predecessor ruins. The ship was caught in a quantum storm and torn apart at the molecular level. But that's not what really happened, is it? Zara pressed, her Altarian intuition picking up on the subtext flowing between the two senior officers. Voss was quiet for a long moment, staring at the swirling patterns of the nebula. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of old guilt. The Meridian wasn't on a routine patrol. We were investigating reports of a weapon something the predecessors had built and hidden in the nebula's core. Intelligence suggested the Kethari were planning an expedition to claim it. The room fell silent, except for the soft hum of the station's life support systems. Reed continued the explanation, his tone grim. The weapon was real, and it was active. When the Meridian tried to secure it, something went wrong. The quantum field destabilized, creating a massive space-time distortion. A temporal anomaly. Zara breathed, understanding dawning in her eyes. You think the ship wasn't destroyed, it was displaced in time. That's the working theory, Reed confirmed. And if we're right, then everyone aboard the Meridian has been experiencing the same. Few moments over and over again for 8 years, trapped in a temporal loop with no way to escape. Voss rose from his chair and walked to the viewport, staring out at the stars beyond the station's hull. His reflection showed a man haunted by decisions made in the depths of space, choices that had seemed right at the time, but had led to unimaginable consequences. There's more, he said without turning around. The weapon we were sent to investigate, it wasn't just a temporal disruptor. According to the predecessor data we managed to decode, it was designed as a reset device. Something to undo catastrophic events by rewinding local spacetime to a previous state. Like undoing the destruction of a civilization, Zara said softly, the implications clear in her voice. Or undoing the outcome of a war, Reed added. If the Kethari gained control of that technology, they could literally rewrite history. Every battle they've lost, every strategic defeat, all of it could be undone. Voss turned back to face the table, his decision already made. What's our operational status? How quickly can we mount a rescue mission? The USS Starforge is being prepped for departure as we speak, Reed replied. She's equipped with the latest temporal shielding and quantum navigation systems. If anyone can penetrate the anomaly and reach the Meridian, it's her. And the crew? I've handpicked the senior officers. You'll have Commander Kellex as your first officer, Chief Engineer Nolan Cross, one of the best in the fleet when it comes to exotic technology, and Dr. Vera Singh, our xenorchaeologist. She's made studying predecessor technology her life's work. Zara leaned forward in her chair. Captain, with respect, this sounds like a suicide mission. If the Meridian has been trapped for 8 years, what makes you think we can succeed where they failed? Voss met her gaze steadily. Because we know what we're facing now, and because I won't abandon my crew again. He turned to Reed. When do we depart? 6 hours. That gives us time for final preparations and crew briefings. Reed stood, his expression serious. Marcus, I want you to understand this isn't just about rescuing the Meridian. If that weapon falls into the wrong hands, it could destabilize the entire sector. We may have to make some very difficult choices. Voss nodded grimly. He understood the implications perfectly. Sometimes saving the galaxy meant sacrificing everything you held dear. He'd learned that lesson once before in the depths of this Helix Nebula. The question was whether he'd have the strength to learn it again. The bridge of the USS Starforge thrummed with barely contained energy as the ship emerged from its final jump, the Helix Nebula sprawling before them in all its terrible beauty. Captain Marcus Voss stood behind the command chair, his prosthetic hand resting lightly on its back as he surveyed the swirling cosmic maelstrom that had haunted his dreams for 8 years. Full stop, he ordered, his voice carrying the authority of decades in deep space. "Begin long-range sensor sweeps. I want to know everything about those energy patterns before we take another step forward." Lieutenant Commander Zara Calix moved efficiently between stations, her blue-tinged fingers dancing across the tactical console with practiced precision. "Sensors are picking up the same quantum fluctuations. Command detected, Captain. The distortion field is approximately 15,000 kilometers in diameter, centered on coordinates that match the meridian's last known position." At the engineering station, Chief Engineer Nolan Cross, a compact man with prematurely gray hair and intense brown eyes, frowned at his readings. "Sir, these quantum signatures are unlike anything in our databases. It's as if space-time itself is folded somehow, twisted into patterns that shouldn't be possible." Dr. Vera Singh looked up from her xenarchaeology workstation, her dark eyes bright with scientific curiosity. "The energy patterns do match theoretical models of predecessor temporal manipulation technology. But the scale is far beyond what we thought they were capable of achieving." Voss nodded, stepping closer to the main display. The nebula's swirling gases created an almost hypnotic pattern, but he forced himself to focus on the tactical implications. "Chief Cross, can our temporal shielding protect us if we enter the distortion field?" "For a limited time, yes, sir. By prolonged exposure." Cross shook his head. "The quantum resonance could overwhelm our systems. We'd have maybe an hour before the shielding fails. And if the shielding fails while we're inside, we'd become part of whatever temporal loop has trapped the meridian," Dr. Singh interjected. "Assuming the ship is even still intact after 8 years of quantum stress." A soft chime from the communications console interrupted their discussion. Zara's head snapped up, her expression shifting to one of intense concentration. "Captain, I'm detecting a transmission from within the distortion field. It's using old fleet encryption protocols." Voss felt his heart rate increase despite his years of training. "Can you clean up the signal?" Zara's fingers flew across her console, running the transmission through multiple filters and enhancement algorithms. The bridge speakers crackled to life, filled with static and quantum interference, but underneath it all was an unmistakably human voice. "Double quotes ... 7 of our investigation of the predecessor facility. The quantum resonance is increasing exponentially. Captain's log, stardate 2387.156. We've made contact with what appears to be an automated defense system. The temporal displacements are becoming more frequent." The voice cut off abruptly, replaced by another transmission that sounded identical, but with subtle differences in inflection and background noise. "Double quotes ... 7 of our investigation of the predecessor facility. The quantum resonance is increasing exponentially. We must find a way to shut down the weapon before." Again, the transmission ended mid-sentence, only to begin again moments later, with the same words but different emphasis patterns. "My God," whispered Dr. Singh. "They're stuck in a temporal loop, reliving the same events over and over again." Voss closed his eyes briefly, recognizing the voice as that of Captain Elena Vasquez, his former first officer aboard the Meridian. She had been one of the finest officers he'd ever served with, and the thought of her trapped in an endless cycle of the same horrific moments made his prosthetic hand clench involuntarily. "How many iterations have we detected?" he asked. "The patterns suggest approximately 2,847 separate loops," Zara reported, her voice subdued. "Each cycle lasting roughly 26 hours, 43 minutes. Chief Cross looked up from his calculations, his face pale. "Captain, if they've been experiencing the same day for over 2,800 times, the psychological damage alone would be catastrophic. Even if we can rescue them physically." "One crisis at a time, Chief," Voss interrupted, though privately he shared the engineer's concerns. "What about the predecessor weapon? Are we detecting any active emissions from the facility itself? Doctor. Singh manipulated her display, showing a complex three-dimensional map of the quantum distortions. There's definitely something artificial at the center of the field. The energy patterns are too regular, too purposeful to be natural phenomena. It's as if the entire distortion is being generated by a single source. A source that's keeping the meridian trapped. Zara added grimly. Voss moved to the captain's chair and activated the ship-wide communication system. Attention all hands. This is the captain. In approximately 30 minutes, we will be entering an unprecedented temporal anomaly to attempt the rescue of the USS Meridian and her crew. Our mission parameters are classified, but I want everyone to understand that we are facing technology beyond our current understanding. He paused, looking around the bridge at his officers. Each of you was chosen for this mission because of your expertise and your courage. We may be walking into a situation where time itself becomes our enemy, but we will not abandon our fellow officers to an eternity of imprisonment. All departments report readiness status in 15 minutes. As the crew began their final preparations, Zara approached the command chair. Captain, there's something else about the transmission patterns. The loop seems to be degrading slightly with each iteration. The quantum stress may be breaking down the temporal matrix that's holding them. Is that good news or bad news, Commander? Both, sir. If the loop collapses naturally, it might free the meridian. But it could also cause a catastrophic temporal explosion that would destroy everything within several light years. Voss studied the swirling nebula on the main screen, his mind racing through tactical scenarios and rescue options. How long before complete degradation? Dr. Singh estimates we have perhaps 10 more loops before the matrix becomes unstable. That gives us approximately 11 days. Then we go in now, Voss decided. Chief Cross, bring the temporal shielding to full power. Dr. Singh, I want continuous monitoring of the quantum field. The moment you detect any sign of catastrophic failure, we abort the mission. As the Starforge began moving toward the edge of the distortion field, Voss found himself gripping the arms of his command chair. Somewhere in that swirling maelstrom of twisted space-time, his former crew was reliving their worst day over and over again, waiting for a rescue that might never come. But Marcus Voss had never been one to abandon his people, and he wasn't about to start now. The USS Starforge shuddered as it crossed the threshold of the temporal distortion field, reality bending and twisting around the ship's hull in ways that defied human comprehension. Captain Marcus Voss gripped his command chair as waves of quantum energy washed over their shields, each impact sending ripples through space-time itself. Temporal shielding holding at 87%. Chief Engineer Nolan Cross reported, his voice tight with concentration as he monitored the exotic energy patterns flowing around them. But the quantum resonance is unlike anything we've encountered. It's as if the field is trying to sync us to its temporal frequency. Dr. Veera Singh looked up from her science station, her dark eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. Captain, the space-time distortions are incredible. We're seeing layers of temporal reality stacked on top of each other, past, present, and potential futures, all existing simultaneously. Through the main view screen, the swirling gases of the nebula took on an otherworldly quality, shifting between different spectral configurations as time itself became fluid around them. Voss could see glimpses of other moments layered like ghostly transparencies. The meridian arriving at the predecessor facility, the first moment of the temporal loop, and dozens of variations on the same catastrophic events. There, Lieutenant Commander Zara Kellex called out from the tactical station, her blue-tinged skin reflecting the strange lights cascading across her console. Bearing 047 Mark 21. I'm detecting solid matter within the distortion metallic. Composition consistent with Terran fleet construction. The image on the screen shifted and focused, revealing the impossible sight of the USS Meridian hanging motionless in space, caught like an insect in amber within a cocoon of twisted reality. The ship appeared intact, but wrong somehow, as if multiple versions of it existed in the same space, creating a disturbing double vision effect. "My God," whispered Dr. Singh, "it's beautiful and terrifying at the same time." Voss stood and moved. Closer to the view screen, his prosthetic hand unconsciously flexing as he studied his former command. "Life signs?" "Confirmed," Zara reported. "The crew is alive, but their biosignatures are strange, fluctuating in patterns that match the temporal loops we detected. Can we beam them out?" Chief Cross shook his head grimly. "Not through this level of quantum interference. We'll need to dock or send a boarding party across in a shielded shuttle." Before Voss could respond, the communications console erupted with activity. The same transmission they'd heard earlier began playing, but now they could hear multiple overlapping versions, dozens of Captain Vasquez's voices speaking in slightly different cadences, creating an eerie chorus of temporal echoes. "Set us on an approach vector," Voss ordered, "but keep our distance. I want to understand what we're dealing with before we commit to a boarding action." As the Starforge moved closer to the trapped vessel, the quantum distortions intensified. Through the view screen, Voss could see brief glimpses of the Meridian's bridge, flickering like frames from an old film reel. In one instant, he saw Captain Vasquez standing calmly at her station. In the next, the bridge was filled with emergency lighting and the chaos of battle stations. The temporal loop appears to center on a critical moment in their investigation, Dr. Singh observed, analyzing the quantum patterns. They're reliving the same 26-hour period, but each iteration contains slight variations, different decisions, alternate responses to the same stimuli. "It's like they're trapped in a probability matrix," Zara added. "Every possible outcome of that day playing out simultaneously." Voss felt a chill run down his spine. The implications were staggering. Not just the rescue mission, but the nature of reality itself seemed to be at stake. "What about the predecessor facility? Can we locate it?" Dr. Singh manipulated her displays, highlighting a massive structure, barely visible through the quantum interference. There, approximately 2,000 kilometers from the Meridian. The energy readings are off the charts. That has to be the source of the temporal field. The structure that appeared on screen was unlike anything in human experience. Crystalline formations twisted through space in impossible geometries, surfaces that seemed to extend in dimensions the human eye couldn't properly process. It pulsed with an inner light that shifted through colors that had no names. "Sergeant." "Pike Torres to Captain Voss," came a voice over the intercom. The Marine commander's gravelly tone carried the confidence of a veteran who had seen action across the galaxy. "Boarding team is prepped and ready, sir. We've configured our equipment with temporal stabilizers based on Dr. Singh's specifications." Voss activated his communicator. "Understood, Sergeant." "Stand by for final briefing." He turned to his senior officers. "Options, people. We can't maintain our position indefinitely, and the Meridian's crew is running out of time. If we can reach the predecessor facility and shut down the weapon, it should collapse the temporal field," Dr. Singh suggested. "But we'd need someone who understands the technology well enough to interface with alien systems that are potentially millions of years old." "That's a big if, Doctor," Chief Cross interjected. "And if we guess wrong, we could make the situation exponentially worse. We're talking about technology that can literally rewrite causality." Zara looked up from her console, her expression thoughtful. "What if we don't try to shut it down? What if we instead try to expand the temporal field to include our ship? If we can sync with their timeline, we might be able to extract them from within the loop. And risk trapping ourselves as well," Voss noted. "Yes, sir. But it might be the only way to save them." Vos considered their options, weighing the lives of the Meridian's crew against the potential consequences of failure. Through the viewscreen, he could see another iteration of the temporal loop, beginning Captain Vasquez's voice echoing across subspace with the same message they'd heard dozens of times before. "We're going aboard," he decided. "Sergeant Torres, prepare your team. Dr. Singh, you're with us. We'll need your expertise with predecessor technology. Chief Cross, maintain our position and monitor the quantum field. If the distortions begin to affect our systems, get the Starforge clear." "Sir," Zara stepped forward. "I should lead the boarding party. You're too valuable to risk on." "Negative, Commander. This is my crew, my responsibility." Voss's voice carried the finality of command decision. "Besides, Captain Vasquez and I served together for 12 years. If anyone can reach her through the temporal displacement, it's me." As the boarding team prepared to depart, Vos took one last look at the Meridian, hanging like a ghost ship in its prison of twisted time. Somewhere aboard that vessel, Elena Vasquez and her crew were fighting the same battle they'd been fighting for 8 years, unaware that help had finally arrived. The question was whether that help would be enough to break the chains of causality that bound them, or whether it would only add more souls to the temporal purgatory of the Helix Nebula. The boarding shuttle Valiant shuddered as it passed through the final layer of quantum interference surrounding the USS Meridian. Captain Marcus Voss felt the familiar weight of a pulse rifle in his hands, though his prosthetic fingers had too been manually calibrated to maintain proper grip pressure. Behind him, Sergeant Pike Torres and his Marine squad checked their equipment one final time, their temporal stabilizers glowing soft blue against their combat armor. "Docking in 30 seconds, reported the shuttle pilot, her voice tight with concentration as she navigated through the cascading waves of distorted spacetime. "The quantum field is playing hell with our systems, but I can hold position for exactly 47 minutes before we risk temporal displacement." Dr. Vera Singh clutched her specialized scanning equipment, her scientific excitement barely contained despite the danger. "Captain, the readings are extraordinary. The temporal matrix is so complex that individual moments are layered dozens of times over. We might encounter multiple versions of the same crew members existing simultaneously." The shuttle's docking clamp engaged with a resonant clang that seemed to echo across multiple time streams. As the airlock cycled, Voss could hear the familiar sounds of a functioning starship, but something was wrong. The ambient noise flickered and changed, as if the ship couldn't decide which moment in time it was experiencing. "Stay close and maintain visual contact at all times," Voss ordered, as they stepped aboard. "According to our analysis, the crew has been reliving the same day for over 2,800 iterations. They may not recognize us, or they might remember versions of events that haven't happened yet from our perspective." The corridors of the Meridian were a nightmare of temporal displacement. As they moved toward the bridge, Voss caught glimpses of crew members flickering in and out of existence, the same officers living through different moments of the loop simultaneously. Lieutenant Harris ran past them carrying a damage report, then vanished only to reappear moments later, walking calmly in the opposite direction. "This is worse than I imagined," Dr. Singh whispered, her scanner detecting dozens of overlapping temporal signatures. "The quantum stress on human consciousness must be incredible. How are they even maintaining their sanity?" They reached the bridge to find Captain Elena Vasquez standing at the center of organized chaos. Her dark hair was streaked with premature silver, and her eyes held a haunted quality that spoke of endless repetition. She turned as they entered, and for a moment her expression showed recognition. "Marcus?" she said, her voice carrying 8 years of accumulated weariness. "But that's impossible. You're supposed to be at the Academy. This is day 7 of the investigation. You shouldn't be here." "Elena, we're here to get you out," Voss said carefully, stepping toward his former first officer. Your ship has been trapped in a temporal loop for 8 years. We've come to rescue you. Vasquez's expression flickered through confusion, recognition, and despair in rapid succession. 8 years? No, that's not right. We detected the predecessor facility yesterday. The weapon is still active. We have to. She paused, her eyes focusing on something beyond the present moment. But I remember saying this before. I remember you coming to rescue us before. Sergeant Torres positioned his Marines at strategic points around the bridge, while Dr. Singh began scanning the quantum patterns surrounding the ship's core systems. Captain, she called out urgently, the temporal matrix is becoming increasingly unstable. I'm detecting cascade failures throughout the quantum field. On the main view screen, Voss could see the predecessor facility pulsing with malevolent energy, its crystalline structures shifting through configurations that hurt to look at directly. But now there were new elements in the display additional. Ships entering the nebula from multiple vectors. Lieutenant Commander Zara Calix to Captain Voss came a transmission from the Starforge, the signal distorted by quantum interference. Sir, we have a problem. 3 Cathari battle cruisers just dropped out of hyperspace at the nebula's edge. They're moving to intercept, and their weapons are charging. Voss felt his blood run cold. The Cathari had chosen this moment to claim the predecessor weapon, just as his team was attempting the rescue. Time to extraction? 22 minutes before our temporal shielding fails, Torres reported. Captain Vasquez moved to the tactical display, her training overriding. The temporal confusion. The Cathari can't be allowed to capture the weapon. If they gain control of temporal manipulation technology. She didn't need to finish the sentence. The implications were clear to everyone present. There's another problem, Dr. Singh added, her voice filled with dread. The quantum cascade failure I detected isn't just affecting this ship. The entire temporal matrix is collapsing. When it fails, it's going to create a quantum explosion that will sterilize everything within 50 light years. Voss processed the tactical situation with a clarity that had made him one of Fleet Command's most respected officers. 3 Cathari battle cruisers, a failing temporal weapon that could destroy dozens of inhabited systems, and a rescue mission that was rapidly running out of time. Elena, can you break your crew free of the temporal loop long enough to get them to the shuttle base? Vasquez nodded, though her expression remained haunted. Some of them, yes. But Marcus, the weapon has to be destroyed. If we try to evacuate everyone, the Cathari will have time to claim it. Through the quantum interference, they could see Admiral Helena Cross's battle group dropping out of Hyperspace 5, Federation starships racing to intercept the Cathari fleet. Chief Engineer Nolan Cross's sister had arrived with reinforcements. But even combined Federation firepower might not be enough to stop the aliens from reaching the facility. Dr. Singh, Voss said, his decision crystallizing with the brutal clarity of command. Can the weapon be overloaded, destroyed in a controlled fashion that won't cause the quantum cascade? Theoretically, yes. But someone would have to manually trigger the overload from the facility itself. The quantum interference makes remote detonation impossible. Voss looked around the bridge at Captain Vasquez and her crew trapped in temporal purgatory, at Sergeant Torres and his Marines ready to follow orders into hell itself, at Dr. Singh holding the key to salvation in her scanner readings. Outside, the battle between Federation and Cathari forces had begun, energy weapons painting the nebula in brilliant flashes of light. Elena, get your people to the shuttles. Torres, escort them and ensure safe evacuation. Voss turned to Dr. Singh. Doctor, you and I are going to pay a visit to our predecessor friends. Captain, Vasquez grabbed his arm. The facility is at the center of the quantum storm. The temporal distortions there are absolute. If you go in, you may never come back. Out. Voss met her eyes with the steady gaze of a man who had already made peace with the consequences of duty. Then we'd better make sure we get the job done right the first time. As the rescue teams began their evacuation and the space battle raged overhead, Marcus Voss and Dr. Vera Singh prepared to enter the heart of the temporal storm. Somewhere in that crystalline maze of alien technology lay the key to freeing the Meridian's crew and preventing a weapon of unimaginable power from falling into enemy hands. But the price of victory might be higher than any of them were prepared to pay. The quantum storm pulsed around them, and time itself held its breath.